The interstellar station hung like a jewel in the darkness of space, its massive frame illuminated by distant stars and the constant glow of countless ships docked around it. The station was a crossroads for the galaxy, a place where alien species of every shape and size gathered to negotiate, trade, and judge. To some, it was a marvel of technology and diplomacy. To Mara Kessler, it was a stage set for humiliation. Humans were not known for their physical strength in the wider galaxy. In fact, many alien races laughed at their presence. They saw humans as fragile creatures, soft and dependent on machines and strategy to survive. Mara, only 27, knew that perception all too well. Yet she had volunteered to represent Earth at the station's ceremonial strength demonstration, a ritual disguised as diplomacy but filled with thinly veiled ridicule. It was an opportunity to prove humanity could endure, even if others doubted it. The arena was vast, circular, and open to the public, with tiers of seating rising high into the station's dome. Alien spectators murmured and shifted, their multi-limbed hands and colorful eyes all focused on the center. Mara walked in, her boots clicking softly against the metallic floor. Her uniform was simple, functional, and nothing like the intricate exosuits and heavy armor the aliens wore. She felt their eyes on her, sizing her up, anticipating weakness. Krathvorn, the alien warrior assigned to challenge her, was already there. Towering at nearly 3 meters with scaled skin that glimmered under the station lights, he radiated confidence and disdain. His muscles bulged unnaturally, and his weaponized forearms hinted at raw combat experience. The Council of Alien delegates watched silently, but the subtle gleam of amusement in their eyes betrayed their expectation. Humans were nothing but soft, and Mara was no exception.
"You come here thinking you can match me?"
Krath's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You, human.
Your species is weak, fragile.
Not worth the air you breathe." The laughter that followed echoed through the arena. Mara felt a familiar surge of heat in her chest, but did not react outwardly. She had trained for this moment. Every human before her might have bent under insult, but she was different. Calm, focused, ready. She stepped forward, letting her gaze meet Krath's without flinching. "I accept your challenge," Mara said simply, her voice carrying across the arena. It was steady, firm, leaving no room for doubt. The aliens whispered among themselves. No human had ever voluntarily faced a warrior of Krath's stature in this public demonstration. Many expected her to retreat, embarrassed, or fail outright. Krath laughed again, a harsh, echoing sound. Bold words for a weak species. Let us see if your body can speak as loudly as your mouth. The arena floor hummed as safety fields activated. Though the combat would be intense, the structure itself could withstand impacts from beings far stronger than humans. Mara took a deep breath, feeling the slight tremor of excitement in her veins. Her body, honed from years of training under Earth's high gravity conditions and extreme survival exercises, was ready. Every muscle, every tendon, had adapted to endure pressure that most aliens could hardly imagine. As the duel began, Krath charged first, a blur of scaled muscle and sheer force. The ground shook under his weight, sending small debris skittering across the metallic floor. He swung a heavy fist, aimed directly at Mara's head, expecting an easy victory. Mara stepped aside with precise timing, her movements fluid and efficient. She didn't rely on raw strength. She relied on timing, agility, and human instinct. The crowd gasped. Some aliens muttered in disbelief. Humans were supposed to be slow, fragile, and predictable. Yet here was one dancing around the mightiest warrior of the arena without fear. Krath grew frustrated. Every strike he delivered either missed or was avoided with minimal effort. His confidence wavered for the first time. Mara, in contrast, moved with a quiet certainty, studying his patterns. Each step, each swing, each breath was calculated. Her brain worked as fast as her body, analyzing the angles and predicting his attacks.
You are nothing but lucky, Krath roared, swinging again. You cannot match me.
This is not luck, she said calmly. This is adaptation. He struck harder, aiming to overpower her in sheer brute force. But Mara anticipated the strike and countered with a swift kick that sent him off balance. The crowd leaned forward. Whispers spread. Perhaps the human was stronger than they had believed. As the battle continued, Mara revealed the secret of human endurance. Humans evolved under harsh conditions. Gravity that demanded strength, predators that demanded speed, and environments that demanded resilience. Every generation learned to survive by combining intelligence, strategy, and physical prowess. Mare embodied that legacy. Her small frame hid explosive power, her movements a blend of grace and precision. The first major confrontation came when Krath lunged with an overhead strike meant to crush her. Mara sidestepped and delivered a precise punch to his midsection. The force of it surprised everyone, including Krath. The armored floor beneath him cracked slightly under the impact, and his momentum carried him backward, stumbling. A hush fell over the arena. Sensors monitored the energy output, and even automated systems struggled to record the impact correctly. Krath staggered to his feet, dazed, his pride wounded. The aliens, watching, began to murmur among themselves. This was no machine-assisted blow. This was raw human power, applied with intelligence and technique.
Human, you are stronger than you appear, Krath hissed. Fury mingled with shock. Mara did not gloat. She remained calm, keeping her breathing steady, her posture relaxed. She had more to demonstrate, and humiliation would not serve her purpose. This duel was not just about strength. It was about rewriting perceptions. Humanity would no longer be underestimated. The crowd leaned forward, captivated. For the first time, many saw humans not as fragile creatures but as beings of hidden potential. Mara's mind worked constantly, adapting to Krath's increasingly erratic attacks. The alien's anger made him predictable, and every move he made, Mara countered with efficiency and precision. The first hour passed in a blur of motion, each strike echoing across the arena. Mara's movements were economical, conserving energy while testing Krath's limits. Krath, for all his size, was tiring faster than expected. The crowd began to sense the shift. Humans were not just survivors. They were adaptable, strategic, and relentless. When the first round ended, neither had been seriously injured, but the message was clear. The human was not weak. The audience, previously dismissive, now watched with respect, curiosity, and a hint of fear. Mara, standing at the center, felt the weight of every eye on her. She was small in stature, but immense in presence. She had already begun to rewrite the galaxy's definition of human strength. As she prepared for the next round, she caught Krath's gaze. His expression had changed, from mockery to disbelief, from confidence to cautious respect. The arena held its breath, sensing that the true test was just beginning. Mara smiled faintly. This was not just a fight. It was a revelation, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The scene ended with Mara taking a deep breath, her fists clenched, ready to continue. The vast interstellar station seemed to hum with anticipation. Beyond the arena, distant stars watched silently as one small human prepared to challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew. The arena held a tense silence as the next round began. Every eye, every sensor, every being present focused on Mara and Krath. The first round had unsettled expectations, but nobody knew exactly what to expect next. The whispers from the audience had grown louder, questioning the assumptions they had held for centuries. Humans were weak? Perhaps not. Krath flexed his enormous arms, the scales on his forearms glinting under the station lights. I underestimated you, human. That will not happen again, he growled,
His voice carried a dangerous edge, a promise of relentless force. His tail lashed behind him, knocking over a section of the reinforced barrier, but the floor absorbed the impact without damage. Mara didn't flinch. Every human instinct told her that fear would be useless. Focus was the key. "You have a chance to end this gracefully," Mara said, keeping her voice steady.
"But that is your choice!" Krath sneered and lunged forward, faster this time with a brutal overhead strike. The air compressed around him, a shockwave rippling across the arena floor.
Most aliens would have counted the blow as fatal if it had landed properly. Mara moved with a human speed and agility that seemed impossible to the untrained eye. She pivoted on the balls of her feet, letting the force pass harmlessly by, feeling the pressure of the attack without letting it slow her. The crowd gasped again. Some murmured in disbelief, questioning their understanding of physics and biology. Humans were supposed to be small, weak, and easily crushed. Yet this one human moved like a predator, calm under pressure, calculating and precise. Krath recovered instantly and aimed a second strike at her midsection. This time, Mara didn't dodge. She anticipated the angle and used her own body as a conduit. Her foot pivoted, her body twisting just slightly, and then her fist struck his chest with a speed and force that made sensors falter. The impact sounded like a cannon blast, though nothing broke around them. Krath was sent skidding backward, slamming into the reinforced arena wall with a loud crash. The arena was silent for a heartbeat. Then the murmurs turned into astonished whispers. The audience, including the alien council, struggled to process what had just happened. Energy readings spiked. Even medical drones had to recalibrate their analysis. This was not technology-enhanced. This was raw human power, applied with knowledge and precision. Krath staggered to his feet, his eyes wide, a mixture of fury and shock clouding his normally confident expression. His pride, a towering wall as strong as his muscles, had been shaken. He growled, his voice trembling, but his strikes became faster, more desperate. The human had not just blocked him. She had challenged his dominance with a single blow. Mara's mind raced as she analyzed his fighting patterns. Krath relied on predictable aggression, assuming that size and strength alone could overwhelm any opponent. But humans had evolved under conditions far harsher than the controlled environments of alien planets. Mara had trained her body to endure impacts, to resist injury, and to turn energy against those who underestimated her. She had survived harsh gravity, environmental extremes, and situations that would have ended any other human. Every strike she anticipated, every dodge she made, was the culmination of generations of adaptation. "You rely too much on strength," Mara said calmly, her voice carrying across the arena. "Strength alone does not win battles."
"And what do you rely on, human? Tricks?
Weakness disguised as technique? Mara shook her head. "I rely on what humans do best, adaptation." The next exchange was a blur of motion. Krath charged with a series of rapid strikes, each more forceful than the last. Mara sidestepped and countered, her movements precise and calculated. She didn't aim to injure, she aimed to demonstrate capability. With every block, every dodge, she showcased human intelligence applied to combat. Then came the moment that would be remembered for decades across the galaxy. Krath, in frustration, unleashed his full force in a single, unstoppable strike. The arena floor shuddered under the weight of his assault. Mara stood her ground. She timed her movement with the precision of a master strategist. Her fist connected with Krath's chest just as he reached her. The impact was like a shockwave. Krath flew backward, slamming into the far wall. The reinforced metal cracked, sparks flying as energy readings spiked wildly. Sensors struggled to keep up. The audience was stunned into silence. Every alien, from the smallest diplomat to the largest warrior, froze, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Krath struggled to rise, his limbs shaking. His pride, his confidence, his belief in human weakness had been shattered. For the first time, he understood that humans were not merely fragile creatures. They were survivors, strategists, and fighters capable of harnessing every ounce of their energy with intelligence and precision. Mara stood calmly, her breathing steady. She didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. There was no need. The proof was in the arena, in the cracks of the floor, in the stunned faces of the audience. Human strength had been revealed, not just muscle, but the combination of adaptability, intellect, and courage. The alien council convened briefly, whispering among themselves. Their prior assumptions were crumbling. Humans were not weak. They were unpredictable, capable of feats that no one had anticipated. Some of the younger delegates looked at Mara with awe. Others looked away, unwilling to admit that their beliefs about humanity had been wrong. Krath roared, shaking off the shock. This cannot be!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the arena. "You are only one human. How can you wield such power? How can your species?" Mara interrupted him, her voice calm but commanding. Strength is not just physical, it is resilience. It is the ability to endure, to adapt, to learn from every strike, and to overcome. You judge humans by size, by brute force, and that is your mistake. We survive because we do not depend on size alone. We rely on everything we have: our minds, our bodies, and our will. Krath's gaze faltered. His movements became more tentative. He had relied on sheer force, expecting the human to crumble, as all humans had before. But Mara had demonstrated that the combination of human resilience, intelligence, and precision could overwhelm even the mightiest warrior. The duel continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Krath attacked, yes, but his strikes were less confident, more reactive. Mara moved with an economy of motion, exploiting every opening, demonstrating that human strategy was as formidable as their strength. Each dodge, each counter, sent a clear message to the audience. Humans could endure, they could adapt, and they could strike with devastating effect when necessary. As the round drew to a close, Krath stumbled, exhausted and bewildered. Mara remained upright, poised and unshaken. The audience erupted, not in laughter, but in astonished applause. Even those who had once mocked humans were forced to reconsider. This small human had rewritten their understanding of strength, resilience, and combat. Mara glanced around the arena, her eyes meeting the gaze of Krath. He was furious, yes, but beneath that fury lay a grudging respect. The seed of recognition had been planted. Humans were not weak. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were a species forged in adversity, capable of feats that even the strongest alien could not anticipate. For the first time in her life, Mara felt the weight of true victory. Not the victory of defeating an opponent, but the victory of revealing the truth. Humans had been judged for their size, their appearance, their perceived weakness. Now, that judgment was being rewritten in real time, before the eyes of the galaxy. As the audience continued to react, Mara prepared for the next round. She knew the challenge was far from over. Krath would not be defeated by a single punch, but she also knew that she had already accomplished something greater. She had shown the universe what humans were truly capable of. The arena seemed charged with electricity. The air vibrated with the realization that human strength was more than physical. It was the product of survival, adaptation, and unyielding determination. Every observer, alien and human alike, felt it. Humanity's reputation was changing. Slowly, irreversibly, and forever. Krath, struggling to rise once more, faced Mara with a mixture of anger and awe. He roared, not with triumph, but with the first hints of respect. Mara smiled faintly, her calm eyes betraying no fear, only the quiet certainty of someone who had already rewritten the rules. The duel was far from over, but the first true shock had passed. Humanity had spoken. Humanity had struck. and the galaxy would never see them the same way again. Krath's massive form trembled as he rose from the cracked arena floor, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Every movement was measured yet frantic, fueled by both pride and shock. For the first time, he understood that this human was unlike any opponent he had faced before. Mara Kessler did not move with brute force. She moved with purpose, with precision, and with the confidence of someone who had faced far worse than him. The audience leaned forward in anticipation. The arena hummed with tension as spectators, both human and alien, watched the continuation of the duel. Every whisper, every glance, acknowledged the same thought. Humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Krath swung with renewed ferocity, hoping to overwhelm Mara with his sheer size and raw power. Each strike shook the floor and sent vibrations through the arena. Mara, however, anticipated his movements as if she had rehearsed them countless times. She shifted her weight, ducked, and sidestepped, letting the momentum of his attacks carry him slightly off balance. "You rely too much on raw power," Mara said calmly, her voice carrying across the arena. "Power alone cannot win a fight. Strategy, timing, and understanding your opponent are just as important." Krath's jaw tightened. His species valued strength above all else, and to be bested by cunning and precision was an unfamiliar, frustrating experience. He lunged again, faster and more aggressive than before, but Mara met him with measured counters. Every dodge, every movement was calculated, allowing her to conserve energy while forcing Krath to expend more. As the battle continued, Mara began to demonstrate the depth of human adaptability. She adjusted her stance, feinting in one direction before striking in another. She used Krath's own weight and momentum against him, redirecting his attacks rather than resisting them. The audience watched in stunned silence, unable to fully comprehend what they were witnessing. Humans had evolved under harsh, unforgiving conditions, Mara's instructor had always said, and she embodied every lesson passed down through generations. Krath, growing frustrated, started to change tactics. He attempted complex sequences, using combinations that relied on speed, power, and unpredictability. Yet Mara anticipated each move. Her mind worked like a finely tuned machine, analyzing patterns and predicting outcomes. Humans, she knew, were capable of learning quickly, of thinking several steps ahead. She had studied her opponent's weaknesses and was ready to exploit them.
"You are faster than I expected,"
Krath hissed, panting from exertion. "Faster." "And smarter," Mara nodded, her expression calm. "Adaptation allows humans to survive." "Every challenge teaches us. Every opponent, every strike, every mistake is a lesson." "That is how we endure," Krath roared, swinging wildly in a desperate attempt to reclaim control. Mara's footwork allowed her to glide around him effortlessly, keeping her movements efficient while forcing Krath to overextend. She countered a particularly powerful strike with a well-placed elbow, sending him staggering back again. The impact caused the reinforced floor to tremble, and the alien council gasped. Sensors recorded energy outputs that far exceeded what they had predicted for a human of her size. The crowd, previously skeptical, began to murmur in awe. Some of the younger alien delegates leaned forward, studying Mara's movements intently. Even the elders, long convinced of human weakness, were forced to reconsider. They had witnessed a single human defy centuries of assumptions, not through sheer strength, but through resilience, intelligence, and precise control. Krath, panting heavily, attempted a feint. He pretended to retreat, hoping Mara would lower her guard. Instead, she mirrored his movement, maintaining perfect balance and timing. With a sudden pivot, she delivered a controlled strike to his side, sending him sliding across the arena floor. Again, the impact was enough to shake the reinforced structure. Again, the audience gasped. "You cannot be predicted," Krath said, struggling to rise, his voice tinged with both respect
and fear. How do you fight like this? Mara's gaze met his.
Humans are survivors. We have learned to expect the unexpected. We have learned to adapt, to use what others see as weaknesses as our greatest strengths. That is how we endure. That is how we survive against impossible odds. Krath's expression faltered. For the first time, he began to realize that he had underestimated not just Mara, but the entire human race. Humans were not merely creatures of flesh and bone. They were strategists, innovators, and survivors. Their resilience allowed them to endure situations that would have ended any other species. The duel reached its climax as Krath launched his final, most powerful assault. The floor quaked beneath the force of his strike. Mara, reading the movement in an instant, anticipated the trajectory. She absorbed the impact with her legs slightly bent, her body channeling the energy, and then countered with a series of precise strikes designed to destabilize him. Krath staggered under the sudden reversal, his massive form unsteady for the first time in the duel. The audience erupted. Whispers turned to shouts. Alien delegates exchanged stunned glances. Humans, previously considered fragile and weak, had demonstrated an entirely new form of strength, one that combined body, mind, and unyielding determination. Mara had shown that human capability was not defined by size alone, but by the ability to adapt and respond with intelligence and precision. Krath, breathing heavily, struggled to remain upright. His pride, once unshakable, now faltered. He had always relied on the certainty of brute strength. But Mara had shown him that power without understanding could be overcome. He looked at her, a grudging respect forming in his eyes, mixed with disbelief. Mara stood, poised and calm, her movements controlled, her breathing steady. She had not only matched Krath's strength, but had demonstrated the superior adaptability of the human mind and body. Every movement, every dodge, every counterattack was a lesson in human resilience and intelligence. The Alien Council convened quickly, their discussions urgent and animated. Their assumptions about humans were collapsing. They had always judged humanity by physical size, by appearances, by perceived weakness. Mara had shown them that humans were unpredictable, capable of feats that defied logic and expectation. She had revealed a species that thrived under adversity, that turned limitations into advantages, and that combined intellect with endurance to overcome the strongest opponents. Krath, realizing the depth of his misjudgment, lowered his stance slightly. His pride remained, but it was tempered by a newfound understanding. He could no longer dismiss humans as weak or fragile. One human, standing alone, had demonstrated what generations of aliens had failed to see. The human spirit, the human mind, and the human body together could achieve the extraordinary. Mara approached him cautiously, not with aggression, but with control. She could end the duel here if she wished, but that was not her purpose. She sought to teach, to reveal, and to correct centuries of misunderstanding. Her presence alone was a statement. Humans were not to be underestimated.
You fought with power and with pride, Mara said quietly, her eyes steady.
But strength without understanding is meaningless. Humans endure because we combine our minds with our bodies.
That is our true strength.
Krath nodded slowly, still struggling to regain balance. He had been humbled, but he had also gained a new respect for the human species. The duel had changed him, and it had changed the perceptions of every observer in the arena. As the round ended, Mara stepped back, her posture relaxed but alert. The audience erupted in applause not just for her skill, but for the revelation she had delivered. Humans were no longer the fragile species they had once been thought to be.
They were survivors, thinkers, and fighters, capable of challenging even the strongest opponents when they combined body, mind, and willpower. Krath rose to his feet fully, his pride wounded but his understanding deeper. He looked at Mara, not as an opponent to be defeated, but as a teacher, a representative of a species that had been underestimated for far too long. Mara, standing at the center of the arena, took a deep breath and surveyed the crowd. She had not just fought a duel,
she had demonstrated the potential of humanity. Every being present, from the smallest diplomat to the largest warrior, had witnessed the power of adaptation, intelligence, and resilience. The duel was not yet over, but the battle for respect had already been won. Humanity had revealed itself in a way that no words or reports could ever capture. Mara had shown that humans could endure, could adapt, and could overcome. The galaxy had begun to see them in a new light. As Mara prepared for the final exchanges, she felt a quiet confidence. She knew that humans were capable of even more than this, and that the lessons she had taught today would resonate across the stars. Krath, recovering his stance, knew it too. He had seen the truth. Humanity's strength was not in appearances, not in size, not in muscle alone. It was in resilience, intelligence, and the will to survive against impossible odds. The arena seemed charged with anticipation. Every observer sensed that this duel was about to reach its ultimate moment. Mare's calm eyes met Krath's, and for a brief instant, the tension of the galaxy itself seemed to focus on the two combatants. One human, standing alone, had already rewritten centuries of assumptions. The final outcome was still unknown, but the truth of human capability had been revealed, and nothing would ever be the same. The arena was silent, every being waiting to see what would happen next. Krath Vorn, massive and proud, still stood in the center, breathing heavily. His scales glimmered under the station lights, but his confidence had been shaken. Mara Kessler, calm and composed, faced him without fear. Every step she took was deliberate, every motion measured. The duel had been long and intense, but the final moments were about to define not only the outcome of the fight, but the perception of humanity across the galaxy. Krath flexed his arms, trying to regain control. "I underestimated you, human," he admitted, his voice heavy with both frustration and respect. "Your strength, your skill. It is unlike anything I have faced." Mara nodded slightly. "And you are not alone in underestimating humans," she said softly. "Your species, and many others, have judged us by appearances, by size, by brute force. But we survive because we learn. We endure because we adapt. That is the true measure of strength." Krath's gaze flicked around the arena, noticing the reactions of the audience, the alien council, the diplomats, the warriors. They all watched with a mixture of astonishment and respect. Whispers filled the space. Humans had always been underestimated, dismissed, even mocked. But now, in front of them all, one human had demonstrated the extraordinary. "You speak of endurance and adaptation," Krath said, his voice lower now, almost reverent. "But can a single human truly represent an entire species?" Mara's eyes met his. "Yes." "Because what you have seen today is not an exception. It is the result of our evolution, our history, our struggle to survive in conditions far harsher than you could imagine. Humans are not the strongest by muscle alone, but by spirit, by mind, and by the will to persevere. That is why we endure. That is why we adapt. That is why we thrive." Krath paused, considering her words. His tail lashed slowly behind him, not in aggression, but in contemplation. He realized that he had been wrong. His arrogance had blinded him to the true capabilities of humanity. He had believed strength was measured solely by size and raw power, but Mara had shown him otherwise. The crowd began to murmur again, but this time with admiration instead of disbelief. Young delegates leaned forward, studying Mara's posture, her movements, her composure. Older observers, even those who had doubted humanity for centuries, nodded slowly. The duel had not just been a display of physical ability, it had been a lesson in resilience, intelligence, and the power of will. Krath stepped closer, his massive form looming, yet there was no hostility in his eyes. "You have proven yourself, human. Not just with your strength, but with your mind. You have rewritten my understanding of what it means to endure. You have rewritten my definition of pain, of challenge, and of reality itself. Mare nodded, accepting his acknowledgement. She could end the duel now, easily overpowering him. But that was not her purpose. The lesson had been delivered. Respect, not humiliation, was the ultimate victory. She extended her hand toward him, an offer of peace and recognition. Krath hesitated, then took it, his massive fingers wrapped around hers, and for a moment the entire arena held its breath. The gesture was simple, yet profound. Two beings from entirely different worlds, acknowledging each other not through dominance, but through understanding. The alien council convened immediately after the gesture. Their discussions were urgent, animated, and filled with reassessment. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as weak and fragile. Mara's performance had challenged every assumption, forcing the council to reconsider. Reports and observations were reviewed, and slowly they began to acknowledge the truth. Humans were formidable. They combined physical endurance, mental acuity, and the ability to adapt to any environment. They were survivors in the truest sense. The head of the council, a dignified figure with iridescent scales, addressed the audience.
Today we have witnessed a revelation. One human has demonstrated abilities that challenge our long-held beliefs.
Let this be a lesson. Humanity is not weak. Humanity endures. Humanity thrives where others would fail, and humanity is to be respected as a partner among the stars. The applause that followed was deafening. Not just polite acknowledgement, but genuine admiration. Aliens of every shape and size stood to recognize the human who had dared to challenge assumptions and rewrite the perception of an entire species. Mara stood quietly, allowing the recognition to settle, her heart steady, but proud. She had fought not only for herself, but for every human who had ever been underestimated, dismissed, or overlooked. Krath, now composed, stepped forward once more.
I spoke foolishly when I called humans weak, he said. I now see the truth.
Strength is not measured by size alone. Strength is measured by the ability to endure, to adapt, and to rise above impossible odds.
Today you have shown me that humans possess that strength in full. Mara smiled faintly.
And that is why humanity will continue to survive and to grow, no matter the challenge, she replied.
Her words resonated through the arena.
They were simple, yet profound. They spoke of a species forged through adversity, capable of overcoming the unimaginable. The audience erupted once again, this time in celebration. Humans in the crowd cheered, proud to witness their species being recognized on a galactic stage. Aliens whispered to each other, exchanging theories and reassessing long-held beliefs. The ripple effect of this single duel would be felt across countless worlds, as reports spread and observers carried the news back to their home systems. Mara turned her gaze to the stars beyond the station. She reflected on humanity's journey, from fragile beginnings on a small, blue planet to a species capable of standing toe-to-toe with some of the galaxy's most formidable beings. The journey was far from over, but today marked a turning point. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not through domination, but through resilience, intelligence, and the indomitable human spirit. Krath approached her one final time.
You have taught me more than I could have imagined, not just about combat, but about life itself.
The human spirit, it is something I will never forget. Mara nodded.
And you, Krath, have taught the galaxy that even the strongest must respect those who endure. Strength alone is not enough.
Understanding, adaptation, and courage to find true power. The duel was officially concluded, and the Council announced that humans would be formally invited into the Interstellar Alliance.
The decision was historic not because of diplomacy, but because humanity had earned respect through its own merit. Mara had not only fought a warrior, she had fought prejudice, assumptions, and centuries of underestimation, and she had won. As Mara left the arena, She felt the weight of history on her shoulders, but also a sense of hope. Humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and the path ahead was filled with challenges, opportunities, and discoveries. Yet she knew one truth above all. Humans would endure. Humans would adapt. Humans would continue to surprise the galaxy in ways that no one could predict. Krath watched her depart, a newfound respect settling in his chest. He had learned a lesson that would stay with him forever. Never underestimate a human. Their strength was not in muscle alone, but in spirit, mind, and heart. He knew that future encounters with humans would be different, marked by caution, respect, and perhaps even admiration. The audience, the council, and the galaxy beyond would remember this day. Mara Kessler had rewritten what it meant to be human in the eyes of the stars. Her actions, her courage, and her skill had ensured that humanity would no longer be underestimated or dismissed. The duel was over, but the impact would be felt for generations. In the quiet moments after the applause, Mara looked out over the endless expanse of space. She imagined the countless worlds awaiting humans, the challenges yet to come, and the opportunities to prove their resilience once more. Humanity had taken its first step into a new era, one where their true strengths would be recognized and respected. And Mara knew deep in her heart that this was only the beginning. The stars shone brightly, reflecting off the station's polished surfaces. To anyone watching, it was a simple, beautiful sight. But to Mara, it symbolized the future. A future where humans, once underestimated, would rise, endure, and thrive among the stars. She clenched her fists briefly, feeling the strength that had carried her this far. One human had changed perceptions today, and countless more would continue to change the universe in the years to come. The arena slowly emptied, leaving behind echoes of a duel that would be remembered for centuries. Mara walked with quiet confidence, knowing she had done more than fight an opponent. She had fought ignorance, prejudice, and doubt. She had proven that humanity was worthy of respect, worthy of its place in the galaxy, and capable of achieving the extraordinary. And so, as the interstellar station hummed with activity and the stars twinkled in the endless void, humanity's story took a new turn. One human had rewritten history. One human had shown the galaxy the true meaning of endurance, adaptation, and strength. And the future, vast and full of possibilities, awaited.